My name is Stephanie Dorian. Let me make sure I'm on speaker view. And I'm the Assistant Director of the Acting Conservatory here at Orange County School of the Arts. It is a pleasure to have everybody here. Today's event is part of our 5th annual Master Artist Series. This series brings acclaimed artists and industry professionals to OCSA to work with our talented students, building their skills and providing inspiration and guidance for their futures. This year, we have an impressive list of visiting guest artists, including Academy Award-winning screenwriter and director Kevin Wilmot, trailblazing ballerina Misty Copeland, Academy Award-winning costume designer Ruth E. Carter, and today's special guest artist, Anna Deavere Smith. We are deeply grateful to our sponsors, Ken, Penny, and Jack Robertson, who have made today's special experience possible. It is due to their generous support that we are able to provide our students unparalleled opportunities in the arts like these. We'd also like to express our gratitude for the special OCSA supporters joining us today. We are glad to have you all with us and appreciate your continued dedication to our school. It is an understatement to say that we are honored to introduce our distinguished guest, groundbreaking artist, Anna Deavere Smith, a Tony Award and Pulitzer Prize-nominated playwright, revered actress, teacher, and author, and one of the foremost solo theater artists of our time. Ms. Smith has created over 15 one-person shows, most of which deal with issues of social justice and communities in crisis. And her work has inspired new forms of theater worldwide. Exploring American character and our multifaceted national identity, her work combines the journalistic technique of interviewing her subjects with the art of interpreting their words through performance. Her plays include Fires in the Mirror, Twilight Los Angeles, House Arrest, Let Me Down Easy, and Notes from the Field, Doing Time in Education. Along with being awarded the National Endowment for Humanities Medal by President Obama, Ms. Smith has starred in TV and film, including For the People, Blackish, Nurse Jackie, The West Wing, The American President, Philadelphia, among others. She is the founding director of the Institute on the Arts and Civic Dialogue at NYU, where she is also professor at Tisch School of the Arts. And in 1989, at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, Anna Deavere Smith was my own acting teacher. When I first stepped into her presence, my mind was blown, as she does for everybody. She truly opened my eyes to the possibilities for theater as a vehicle for social change. And it was her influence that led me to commit to pursuing a career in the theater. And again, 25 years later, to create my own solo work. So on a personal note, Anna, thank you so much for your continued support and mentorship. Today, Anna will share a bit about her work and process, and we will get to see her perform. After that, there will be a Q&A, and then the second portion of the program, Anna will spend some time speaking with select students from the acting and creative writing conservatories. So in anticipation of her visit, we created a writing and performance project called the Identity Project, where students submitted a digital pitch for their own one-person play, as well as an original monologue inspired by the work of Anna. The theme of the project is, of course, identity. So following Anna's presentation and the Q&A, we will all view a video clip of the 5 students whose work was selected to show Anna. We will pause the clip after each student's work is presented for 5 minutes of discussion between Anna, myself, and each student. And I would be remiss not to hugely thank the following faculty members who helped bring the Identity Project to fruition in a very short period of time: Lindell Higgins, Brenda Smith, John Bernstein, Jan Cole, and BJ Dodge. And special thanks to Acting Conservatory and Creative Writing Conservatory directors, John Walcott and Josh Wood. With that, please join me in welcoming the incomparable Anna Deavere Smith.
Hi, everybody. Great. So, well, you know, I'm very proud to have taught Stephanie in 1989 when she was 5 years old. Prodigy. She was a real prodigy at the American Conservatory Theater. And then, you know, she took a workshop of mine some years later. I mean, maybe about 8 years ago or something like that, and reacquainted. We were reacquainted, and I just think she's a fine teacher. I wish I were rich enough to steal her away to teach with me at NYU, where I teach now. Of course, nobody's hiring anybody anywhere, most places, given this particular world we're in. I'm very excited about seeing the work later on identity, these identity projects. My work has really been about chasing that which is not me. When I got out of acting school, when I was 6, in 76, I was also a prodigy. It was a time in American history, not like now, but we had been through something like now. By that I mean, by like now, I mean a very divided time. The earlier civil rights movement that then became more radical in the 70s. Probably the precursors of the Black Lives Matter movement were people who became quite well known in the 1970s. And, you know, the 60s having been this wish for a more harmonious country, a more humane country, a more loving country, a more compassionate country. When I got out of acting school was a time when, if you were not a white straight man, you were encouraged to write about yourself. And for that reason, we have many of the playwrights that you know about, like August Wilson, like Tony Kushner, like Susan Laurie Parks. Many of the playwrights that you enjoy now are specifically because we were encouraged to write about ourselves, to try to change the American canon. When I went to school, it was, you know, great people, but still it was limited. Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, Bertolt Brecht, you know, of course, the classics. And the only way for me to find any material whatsoever that had people in it who quote unquote look like me, or in fact, some of the other students when I was in graduate school, part of the conservatory, was asked to direct. I mean, it was, and to particularly direct the kids of color. It was like, well, where's the scripts? And I had to go to this famous, wonderful bookstore, if you're ever in San Francisco, City Lights bookstore, but down in the basement in the used book section was where I was able to find plays that were written in the 70s, but had, you know, come and gone. And if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have known anything about an expanded canon, unfortunately. So, but that's all to say, I made a decision not to write about myself at the moment that everyone else was writing about themselves. So you've yet to see a play by Anna Deavere Smith about 3701 Springdale Avenue or 1312 North Mentlow Street, where I grew up, or any of the members of my family for that matter. And why? Because I decided that I wanted to learn about America in a broader way. My grandfather had said when I was a girl, if you say a word often enough, it becomes you. And I decided that I wanted to try to become America word for word. That was a pretty ambitious project. I haven't done it. I've tried, but it hadn't happened. And so I became very interested in particular in people who weren't not like me, and in using, in part, what I'd learned in studying Shakespeare, and Professor Dorian and I can talk about that later. Using that was really my jump off point. And briefly, because in Shakespeare, you know, they say, well, just say the words, don't like do all this inner monologue stuff. Say the words and you'll be the character. And I thought, well, this is kind of magic. I want to see about that. So I was trying to become America word for word by interviewing people and then saying what they said exactly if they said it. So I say that I have been spent this part of the greater part of my creative career chasing that which is not me. And if you think about it, that's pretty radical. It's much more radical than performing the self, and especially now, where America is a tribal country. I don't even know if the tribal folks, you know, the original Americans would like it that I use that word, because it, you know, tribes are actually very interesting. But we are divided into identity camps. Some of it's productive and a lot of it's not. So I would like to suggest that not everybody, but some people should think about dedicating some of their lives to being ambassadors to that which is not you. And that's where my idea of the broad jump to the other comes in. Because in fact, you can never actually be anybody but yourself. You know, we live in what I call safe houses of identity. They're not really safe. You know, a safe house is where they put you if you're basically being sort of sequestered or jailed, really. That's what a safe house is. But these safe houses of identity where we are with the people just like us. And the fact is, if you leave your safe house, you actually can't just go knock on the door of another one and say, can I come in? I'm hungry. Or you slam the door in your face. You may have alienated the people in the house you were in. They may not let you back in. And so you just have to hang out in what I call the crossroads of ambiguity. And you have an opportunity in those crossroads. I emphasize it's not for everybody. You have an opportunity, I think, especially now and more than ever in my lifetime, not ever in the United States, history of the United States, but more than ever in my lifetime, you have an opportunity to provide leadership and to do something original. So that's what, you know, the thing about the broad jump to the other is if you kind of think about yourself as on a pier at a lake, and there's another pier across the lake, well, guess what? You're not going to make it. Most likely, you're not going to make it. And so you have to kind of live with that your effort has to be enough to feed your own dignity and your own sense of self. But most likely, you're not going to make it. However, you will develop muscles and you'll get stronger and stronger and get closer and closer. And we can talk a little bit more about that when Professor Dorian talks to me. So what I want to do is just two of the people, I've interviewed thousands of them. I'm just going to perform two for you. And again, these come from tape recorded interviews. And I'm representing somebody word for word. You will see that I won't make it, the broad jump towards the other. I'm not going to make it. But maybe something else, we'll have to talk, Professor, about if something else happened for me or for the audience, even though I didn't make it. And so I'm going to start with somebody who, out of the thousands of people I've interviewed, has got to be one of the most unlike me of anybody. And his name is Brent Williams. I met him in Shoshone, Idaho. He's a bull rider. I met him at a wedding and the rehearsal dinner. My best friend from college's daughter, with the rehearsal dinner. He was sitting across from me and he was very, very handsome. He looked like a sort of beat up Montgomery Clift. I know that's not in your generation, but you probably saw some of those movies. And his presence was so amazing. His charisma was so, so amazing. And so I said to him, well, what do you do? And this was in Sun Valley, Idaho. I said, what do you do for a living? Oh, bull rider. And I thought it had something to do with the market because it was Sun Valley. But he was a real bull rider. And so I said, well, you know, I want to interview you. I'm going to come back and interview you. And he told his wife. And his wife said, she's just talking. She's not going to interview you. She's just talking. And then I called him up and said I was going to interview him. And his wife said, I looked her up. Look who she is. You're not even going to be able to answer her questions. And of course, when he told me that his wife said that, I was completely dedicated to him. Not only did I interview him, I actually performed him at Carnegie Hall. But anyway, so therefore the wife who said that about him. You're not even going to be able to answer her questions. This is Brent Williams. Okay, so I'm working with a teleprompter for the first time in my life. We'll see how it goes. I got hung up by a bull, probably weighed 2,200 pounds. Wasn't a mean bull. When I hit the ground, I saw I was on my side and I broke a couple ribs. And there was a guy, urologist hospital, sitting in the front row. This is going too fast, so I have to go back. This is great. 1 second. We're going to start again. We just wrapped this up for you today. So let's see if this is better. Yeah.
Perfect.
I got hung up by a bull, probably weighed 200 2,200 pounds. Wasn't a mean bull, but I hit the ground on my side, and he stepped on my left side with 2 back feet, broke 4 ribs. And there was a guy, a urologist at the hospital, sitting in the front row. And he came and he told me, he said, "Kid, you better go to the hospital." And I said, "No, I'm all right. I just broke some ribs." He said, "No, I'm a urologist for the hospital, and you got to get that checked out." So he got on the phone. He called the military hospital, a civilian normally go to military hospitals, a life or death situation. He told them, it was life or death. And I was kind of laughing. I didn't believe him. And then he took me to the hospital and they made me piss in a cup. And it was just straight red blood. Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. And the whole time I'm just waiting to hear how long I'm going to have to sit out before I could rodeo again. But about an hour later, they came and told me that they was going to have to remove my left kidney. And I begged them for like a half hour. I told them I'm still going to ride bulls if I only got 1 kidney left, but I just soon have 2. And I'm very grateful for them doctors there. They tried a new deal. They put a stent in there and they saved half my kidney. So I got 1.5 kidneys instead of 1. And them guys get paid a flat rate. It's not like they're trying to rape me to make more money to pay their Mercedes-Benz bills or whatever they got. And I'll bet you most of them guys don't even drive in fancy sports cars that the doctors do. Cost me a flat rate, $1,200. Yeah, $1,200 flat rate. Didn't matter if I got CAT scans or whatever they did to me. And I didn't, and it didn't change. And I was in ICU for 6 days. And then when they took me to the next level, didn't change. I didn't get no doctor's bills, nothing. And I was there for 11 days. Everyone pays a flat rate, no matter what it is. And I personally feel like we need to go to a deal like that. And I think I have better doctors there than I would be that wanted to be doctors instead of these pricks that just these days just go to college, spend all their parents' money going to college, and they make a killing. They don't give a god. You tell me a poor doctor and I'll kiss his ass. We'll see what doctors really want to be doctors when there ain't as much money in it. That's when you're going to have your good doctors. And them doctors, I feel like, they told me. And if I went to the other hospital in San Antonio, if it had been anywhere else, they just took my kidney out. So I'm very grateful for them doctors. Yeah, we have insurance, a family policy. Blue Cross of Idaho, $260 a month, cover all of us. It's like $7,500 deductible, which is stupid. We don't ever meet that. I mean, all this paying money, and we got to pay, $7,500 before they meet it. And all they do is just rape us. It's just like, just like all the people that got the money, they rape the poor until pretty soon they're going to be raping the middle class. And then pretty soon then the middle class will become poor, and then they'll start raping the rich. And they're gonna break the whole country, I think. Well, basically though, I'm an optimist. That's what I like. That's what I like to say. I'm an optimist. Well, yeah. Look, when you ride bull and you do good in riding, you feel like there ain't nothing in the world. There's nothing in this world that could probably, beat you up or anything like that, And I just feel like life couldn't be better, Like that's what life is supposed to be, And it feels, I don't know, because there's just because it's like so much power in it. Think about it. You shouldn't be able to stay on the back of a bull that's trying to buck you off, because we weigh 150 pounds, and they weigh 200 pounds, and you feel like a king at that moment, you just, and that you can't stay on top of every bull. I mean, but I think it's determination. You know, I think it comes from inside you. What keeps you on that bull. And I think if I couldn't ride bulls, it'd just be like a big old empty space inside of me. I think probably be like an even bigger empty space in me, you know, than when like my brother died, you know. And I don't know for sure, but I know how it would, you know, it's pretty big empty space. But I feel like I guess what I feel like is I feel like when I'm done rodeoing, probably be like the day my brother died, you know. Toughness, toughness. Well, we was in West Jordan, Utah, and I had this bull shove my face right through the metal chutes. And some buddies drove me to the hospital. Took like 5 hours to sew me up. And when they straightened out my nose, I had to be at a rodeo that night. And I really didn't want to go under the anesthesia or however you say that word. So I told them just do it without it. And they shoved these 2 rods up your nose, work their way up, and that straightens your nose all up. And it felt like they were shoving it clear up through my brains and was going to come out through the top of my head. And everybody saw it, and they said it should have killed me. And they didn't even knock me out. And like I don't feel much pain, you know. So I guess that'd be toughness, I guess. But you know, once they did that, I could breathe, and I haven't been able to breathe through my nose since I broke it in the high school rodeo. And that is Brent Williams. So I would say that he's incredibly different from me. And then I'm just going to close with somebody who also is not really like me, but at least someone who's coming from the same history as me. And that's Congressman John Lewis. You all know that we lost Congressman Lewis, a great American hero, just recently. As if 2020 wasn't challenging enough. And this is John Lewis, and then we'll see what Professor Dorian has to say. And this is called Brother. Again, it's word for word from an interview that I did with Congressman Lewis in Washington. Brother. On our way on this trip that we've been taking for the past 13 years. I've been going back every year since 1965, back to Selma to commemorate the anniversary of Bloody Sunday that took place on March 7, 1965. But the congressman and me go down, and we usually stop in Birmingham for a day, and then we go to Montgomery for a day, and then we go to Selma. But on this trip to Montgomery, we stopped at First Baptist Church, the church that was pastored by Reverend Ralph Abernathy. It's the same church where I met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Abernathy in the spring of 1958. Young white police officer, the chief, came to the church to speak on behalf of the mayor who was not available. And he gave a very moving speech to the audience. The church was full. Black, white, Latino, Asian Americans, members of Congress, staffers, family members, children, and grandchildren. And he said what happened in Montgomery 52 years ago during a freedom ride, when you arrived, was not right. He said the police department didn't show up. They allowed an angry mob to come and beat you. And he said, Congressman, I'm sorry. What happened? I want to apologize. This is not the Montgomery that we want Montgomery to be. This is not the police department I want to be the chief on. Before any officers are had, he said to go through training. They had to study the life of Rosa Parks. They had to study the life of Martin Luther King Jr. They had to visit the historic sites of the movement. They had to know what happened in Birmingham and what happened in Montgomery and what happened in Selma. He said, I want you to forgive us. He said to show the respect that I have for you and for the movement, I want to take off my badge and give it to you. And the church was so quiet, no one said a word. And I stood up to set the badge, and I started crying. And everybody in the church started crying. It was not a dry eye in the church. I said, officer, chief, I cannot accept your badge. Don't you need it? He said, Congressman Lewis, I can get another one. I want you to have my badge. And I took it. And I'm never ever going to forget it. And I'm going to hold on to it forever. But he hugged me. I hugged him. I cried some more. You had Democrats and Republicans in the church crying. Young Black deputy assistant was sitting down. Young Black police officer was sitting down. He couldn't even stand. He cried so much like a baby, really. It was the first time that any police chief in any city where I visit or where I was arrested during the 60s ever apologized or where I was beaten. And it was a moment of, it's a moment of grace. And the chief was very young. He wasn't even born 52 years ago. So he was apologizing, offering an apology and to be forgiven on behalf of his colleagues, his associates from the past. It's a moment of grace. Grace was a moment of reconciliation. And it felt so good for this young man to come up, ask to be forgiven. At the same time, it felt so freeing and so liberating, and it means that the pain and the suffering that so many people have suffered have been redeemed. But and then for the police officer, the chief, to have this young man come up, he hugged me, he held me, and I felt like, I felt like I'm just one. I'm just one of the people. Many people would be too. It is amazing grace. You know that song, y'all know that song, and they know the line in there. It save a wretch like me. It's saying, it says we all falling short. We all just trying to make it. We all searching. We all, like Dr. King say, we out to redeem the soul of America. We first have to redeem ourselves. But this message, this act of grace of the badge says to me, never give up. Never give in. Never lose faith. Keep the faith. But this young man, if something moved him, it take what I call raw courage to go with his heart, to go with his spirit, to go with his soul. He's a very, very interesting man. I'm thinking about calling him up, say hello to him. You know, how you doing? The only time something like this happened before was, remember the Klan in Rockwell, South Carolina, who beat me and my seatmate on May 9th, 1961, during a freedom ride. He came in office. His son had been encouraging his father to seek out the people that he had wronged. And he came in office and he said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you on May 9th, 1961. Will you forgive me? I want to apologize. Said I forgive you. I accept the apology. His son started crying, he started crying, I started crying, he hugged me, the son hugged me. And since then, I've seen this guy 4 different times since that time. He called me brother. And I call him brother. All right. Professor Dorian, you are on now.
I am here. Oh, Anna, what a beautiful combination of pieces to share. Thank you for that. And thank you for especially the John Lewis piece. That one always gets me, and especially now with him being gone, it's powerful, and the power of forgiveness. And thank you. We're going to move into a segment, a Q&A. We've got some select questions we're going to ask you, but I just want to take a second to ask you about, obviously language. Obviously, as actors, we want to find the souls of our characters, and you know, we clue into the language and the words that they say. But can you tell us about the physiology of the language, or the architecture of the language that taps into an emotional space?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a very sophisticated question. We could have a whole class about it. I mean, my little theory is that, you know, we learn to speak smart, and that's not really any good or useful for us in the theater, because we need 2 very important things in the theater. We need a strong will to communicate, and then you know, we need to be riding emotion. And for me, the things I seek out are basically songs that people have sung that have that emotion in it. And so if you look at them carefully, and it's not that all speech is like this. Again, I speak to hundreds of people before I have the 90 minutes worth of material, but I'm looking for that moment when people start singing. And when they start singing, it's that they make their own structures of speech. Sometimes it's right in the moment. Sometimes it's from things they've heard before, like when John Lewis says, you know, but this message, this act of grace and a badge says to me, never give up, never give in, keep the, so he's heard, those are rhythms that clearly he's heard before, right? And, you know, when he says we all fallen short, we've all done, he stretches his vowels. I'm sure you talk to your students about making sure they're stretching vowels. You know, the really smart people, the people I call that speak the official language, they don't stretch their vowels. They have too many words to say. They run from consonant to consonant, but we need our vowels, right? We all falling short. We all just trying to make it. We all searching. So your vowels, that's a very important part, to use your word, of the architecture, that there are all these consonants, but the vowels are the power where the breath is for us. And so we have to think of those vowels almost like a great big, you know, one of those balls in the gym, like a great big ball. And then the consonants are sprinkled on top of it.
And also, you know, what's going on between the lines. We talk about what's going on between the lines and what is communicated between the lines.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in lines that don't make it all the way across the page, really. You know, that's it. It's not just that. It's that the words don't even make it all the way across. I'll show you, like so in John Lewis, you know, here's a page. It doesn't look like a normal page of writing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, words don't even make it all the way across the page because there's breath, there's thought, there's pauses.
Yeah. And just even the way that he and Brent, the shape of their mouth and the way that the words come out through their mouth. I mean, and the wailing. I mean, all of that is just so telling. And it's hard to try to get through to students, you know, to look beyond that from just looking at the script. How would you advise them?
It's not just the script. I mean, way back when I was teaching in the 80s, you know, and in the late 70s, I was trying to help people understand that, you know, we don't talk the way Arthur Miller wrote, with the words right across the page. But you have now, they're watching so much television.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond television, I mean, then the kids were watching TV too, but now they're really affected by these major iconic people that they're seeing on YouTube, on social media, on movie stars, and without knowing it, they're being affected by it. They may not realize it, but it's seeping into their whole body, and it's taking away their natural rhythms, because somebody's a great actor, they think that's effective. And by the way, it's not easy either, you know, like being in TV, people don't talk the way I'm required to talk television, you know, and they just want, you know, half the time it's like pick up the line, because it's not really about that, it's about something else. You know, TV is really about telling a story, right? You're serving the story. So unless you're a great big movie star, you're not going to get a chance to pause and all that.
Right. Thank you. Well, let's give some time to these students with questions, with burning questions for Anna. Let's go ahead and spotlight River. River, are you around? There you are, River.
I'm around. Hello. First of all, thank you so much for taking your time. I think my question was already answered. It was along the lines of, and you can remind me, Miss Dorian, if I'm getting it wrong, but I think it was along the lines of like what inspired you to kind of start looking at other people's lives and really understanding where they come from. Was that my question?
That was your question.
Well, I mean, you know, when I was doing it, it was just because I've always been curious, and, you know, they would always tell me to stop staring when I was a little girl. And then years later, I had a chance to meet Richard Avedon, great photographer. And I realized he stares all the, he's like staring at people, like you're not supposed to stare. And I thought, wow, how cool that like he just is not inhibited about just like staring. And I always like to listen. It reminded me of Eudora Welty. I came across somebody great writer from Mississippi, saying that, you know, Sunday night dinner at her house, they wouldn't let her, when she was a little girl, have dinner with the grown-ups. And so she would sit outside the room. And when they were talking to her, ears would just open up like morning glories. And that really spoke to me because I like to listen to people. So it's coming out of a real love of looking, and particularly what I'm not supposed to look at. like the people I'm not supposed to care about, the people I'm not supposed to love. I'm very interested in staring at them. And then, you know, I suppose now, I mean, I kind of made this up, but I think it's make it up. I mean, you know, we reflect on our lives and we try to make meaning out of our lives. I think I grew up in a very segregated city. And I think, you know, chasing that which was not me and falling in love with somebody like Brent Williams, it helped me solve the problem of my own sense of not belonging and my own alienation. I think it really solved that. It really, really did solve that problem for me. And so every time I met a stranger, and another photographer, Mary Ellen Mark, wrote in one of her books that the camera provided the necessary distance to get close to strangers. So the tape recorder and my enterprise is a very sort of respectable way. There's a distance, right? It's like, this is a tape recorder. So whatever else you think could happen is not going to happen. This distance helped me get close to people who were very different from me.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you,
so
River.
much.
Next question, Isabella Brooks.
Hi, Ms. Deveare Smith. Thank you
Hi.
so much for coming. So my question is, how do you retain all of the information and research that you have gathered from the person you are portraying so accurately without making it seem like you are acting?
Well, I am acting, so I mean, I'm acting. I'm acting. It's just a technique that I've developed, but I'm still acting, as you know. But my goal is not to make it seem like I'm not acting. I mean, I think that is the goal sometimes with acting. My goal is not to make it seem like I'm not acting. My goal is to speak the words and have you hear words in a different way than you may, even if the real person was in front of you, because the real person may not be conscious of the music in their words. And I've studied that the way you would study a musical score. And so my goal is to have you hear that person differently than you would even hear them in real life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, James. James Slaybaugh.
Hello, Ms. Deveare Smith. Thank you for your
Thanks.
and my name is James Slaybaugh, as was said. I'm in the 12th grade, and I wanted to ask you, sorry, it's written right here. I'm just going to read this. How do you remove all prior opinions, prejudices, stereotypes, and all other pre-existing notions of a person to be able to give a truthful replication of said person?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have the same prejudices, or not the same ones you have, but I have my own opinions and all of that. But I know by now that so what? They're not going to help me do what I'm trying to do. So what? You know, if I wanted to just be in my opinions, I'd be an op-ed writer, you know, or I'd be a court person. I'd be a lawyer. I'd be a public, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't be a public defender. You know, I'd be a prosecutor. I mean, so I'm interested in making portraits of people. So that's kind of like asking me if a criminal, let's say, for example, a murderer, a really horrible murderer, let's say the New Yorker wanted a photograph of that murderer. Well, I could say, I don't want to photograph the murderer. But I could also say, I think this would be a very interesting picture to make. So I'm interested in humans. There's enough judges. So I understand there's enough opinions. There's enough prejudices. I understand they won't do me any good. When I'm talking to a person, it's not going to do me any good. They will sense that. And they will not want to talk to me in an open way. And then when I sit down to do the work, it will keep me from really studying and hearing closely what somebody has said. So that's the simple answer. It won't do me any good. Any more than a person wants to be a fashion model who has a huge appetite. It won't do her any good. She's going to have to do something about that huge appetite, because models aren't supposed to eat very much.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Kaya.
Hi, Ms. Deveare Smith. My name's Kaya Sparnick, and I am in 8th grade. My question for you is, I was so moved by your the monologue that you did of the Korean merchant in Twilight Los Angeles, and I was wondering, how do you get the people you interviewed to open up to you and trust you so deeply, especially when you're not Korean, as was the case in this situation?
Well, that's a very excellent question. And I mean, there's different ways to answer that question in general, but specifically, I would never have been able to talk to Mrs. Young Sun Han, and Mrs. Young Sun Han would never have trusted me. And this is very, what I'm about to say is very instructive to all of you, because it's about the broad jump towards the other, is sometimes you can't even make the jump without somebody helping you. So when I went to Los Angeles to write Twilight Los Angeles, and I interviewed 320 people, I don't know how, but these two graduate students at USC, Korean American, heard about it, and they contacted me. There were two of them, and they were on the phone, and they said, "We heard about what you're doing, and we just want you to know that you're going to get it wrong. So we would like to help you." And they took me around to their communities. They translated for me. One of them's father took me to church and for Korean lunch. And they took me to see Mrs. Young Sun Han. And the three of us sat with her. And if those girls had not been there, there's just no way it would have happened. So that's the other thing. If you want to help somebody make the broad jump, you can do that too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming and talking to us today, too.
Oh,
It's been
anything for Stephanie or Professor Dorian.
Oh my gosh, Professor. That's so weird to hear that. I'm your student forever, Anna. I'm no professor. Next question, Layla Stark.
Hi, Ms. Deveare Smith. I'm Layla. Thank you so much for coming in today. This is such an amazing opportunity. And I was really wondering, what inspires the themes that you choose for your plays? And how do you decide what messages you want to share with the public? And how do you find those people with which to tell your stories?
Well, I mean, my plays come from different places, different reasons. Let Me Down Easy, the play that Brent is in, I was asked to be a visiting professor at the Yale School of Medicine and to interview doctors and patients, and this back in the 90s. And it was just a very powerful experience. And so I thought maybe I could make a play of this, but that didn't even happen till more than 10 years later, but it was still in my system. Notes from the Field, my most recent play, some people talked to me about what's called the school to prison pipeline, and they felt that I could use my position, my presence in the theater to, cause people to think differently about poor kids in our country. So I jumped on board. So everything has a different type of a start. Finding the people is, you find one person and you ask that one person about another person, and then suddenly you have 300 people. I don't have themes. In the course of rehearsal, and I show up at the first rehearsal, usually about 4 hours of material that has to become an hour and a half. It's in the course of really studying the language and embodying the language that themes start to be revealed, but I don't have themes in the beginning. And I don't know what I'm looking for when I go out in the field. I have a general idea, but I don't have themes. And by the way, people start to try to give you themes, right? Especially the people who speak what I call the official language, right? You start to hear, say with Notes from the Field, which had judges, and I talked to judges and teachers and went inside of juvenile hall and other prisons and public defenders and intellectuals, big shots at Johns Hopkins University, all these people, Stanford, they all have what I call the official language. And once I hear like one of those official words 3 times, I'm like, I don't trust that language. And that you would expect the themes to be in that language. But then I'm like, I get in the mood where I have to like defy that language. Yeah, because that's learned. That's not real experience, right? So I don't have themes. If I were writing an essay, I need a theme. But I don't need a theme when I start to write a play. I need people and ideas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One more question, Maddie. Is Maddie here? Maddie Mushopoulos? Well, I can ask her question for her, Anna. She wanted to know, how did you know what you wanted to do? How did you know you wanted to act? And at what age? And what advice do you have for someone like me who wants to have a career as an actor?
How old is she?
Maddie is in the 8th grade.
Well, when I was in the 8th grade, I did not know I was going to do this. I didn't know until I was about 23, and I had gone to the same place that Professor Dorian went, which was American Conservatory Theater Summer Training Program. And I just went because I was kind of bored and stuff like that. And I thought maybe I could like do some volunteer stage managing. And that's when I learned there were unions for that. And I heard that there was a summer training thing. And so I took it. I didn't even know that you would go to a place like ACT in order to start to build your career. And I also didn't know that like whatever the 300 students were in those days, they were going to pick 12 of them to put into their real 2-year school. And so when I was about to leave, I got this phone call that the head of the school wanted to see me. And he sat me down and he said that, well, your acting teacher, we told your acting teacher we would like to give you a place in the school. But he said this, you don't want to do this. You want to go back and do what you're doing. And I said, well, he said, well, I just want you to know there's a place here for you if you want it. So I called up two of my friends who've been in school with me. And I said, what should I do? He said, take the place, idiot, take the place. And I went over to my friend, Chuck Selber. Chuck is now gone. I think he died of AIDS. Went over to Chuck's house, his apartment in San Francisco. Professor Doria can tell you all about those kind of apartments we lived in. And I went over to Chuck's house. He's from Louisiana. And he made me a meal that I will never forget in my life. I knew you'd be hungry, Anna. And it was like a half a honeydew melon with a huge blob of peanut butter and tuna salad. And I will always think of that as like the best celebratory meal.
Oh, that's great.
So in this case, never happened in my life again. I walked right into something and figured out and saw that I could do it, but I still didn't realize there was a career in it. So what do you say to somebody in the 8th grade who knows they want to be an actor? I would say, study your lessons, be nice to Professor Dorian.
They are so nice. They're so fabulous. So I'm going to segue here. Thank you, Anna. We're going to now take a look at the video clip of 5 students whose work was selected to show you based on this project, the Identity Project. They're all original monologues. They're all very revealing, very brave. We're very proud of these students. And then after each clip is played, everybody, we're going to do a short pause so that we can bring the students up to chat with Anna and myself. So let's go ahead and play the first student, please. This is West.
My name is Wes Mullins, and my project is Mochi. I decided to call my project Mochi because my grandpa Tino, who this piece is really centered around, He used to call me Mochi when I was younger because on the outside I'm white, but on the inside I'm very much Pinoy. Pinoy, it means you're Filipino. I'm very Pinoy, I'm very Filipino. You know, my friends are like, Wes, that's your family? They're Pacific Islander. You're not Pacific Islander, you're white. I'm also Filipino and Japanese, but that's all I get to say. I never get to say anymore. And with this piece, I'm really able to tell sort of everyone, I'm able to tell even myself who I am, and I'm able to expand on my ancestry. Anna Deavere Smith. I mean, I've finished watching Twilight. It is incredible. I love the way she's able to turn into her different characters and how she's able to bring everybody's voice to life. I'd never seen someone try to impersonate except for in a hateful way. And hers came out of love. And I was really inspired by that. So with this project, I was really inspired to do that with my grandpa. Being able to become him in this piece, it's really gonna help me connect with him. And I just think it's a really beautiful thing. I really feel like we all just need to be a little bit more open-minded, and we'll all accept each other and love each other more. I know what you're thinking. I've actually heard it before. Disguised behind nicknames or tossed harshly in barely audible whispers at my back as I walk by. White boy, Hakuji, Putin Chow, Maputi. But Oji-san called me Mochi. I am a product of war. I stand here before you, 5'10", blonde hair, green eyes, pale skin, often mistaken for the conqueror. But it's in fact I who has been conquered. My whole history, my whole ancestry, my essential identity, a tapestry of internment, conflict, immigration, and assimilation. When I was born, everyone was surprised because instead of having dark hair and dark eyes like my Filipino or Japanese ancestors, I was somehow born with blonde hair and green eyes of the oppressor. But Oji-san called me Mochi. Grandson, do you know why I call you the Mochi? And I know that everyone make fun of that because the Mochi is the white pastry. But the Mochi also has the red bean, the sweet red bean flavor that you are, the sweetness of the red bean. And although you are white on the outside, you are my grandson. So that is why I call you the Mochi. And never mind your cousins and your uncle and your auntie that make fun of that, because the Mochi is the white pastry and you are white on the outside. You are very much Pinoy on the inside. Remember that, son. Grandpa, Lolo, Oji-san, I feel you. I hear your voice. Your ancestors were interned, your land stripped away. You sailed for months on unknown waters. You fought in wars bigger than I will ever know, just so that I can taste the sweetness of the red bean and know that my imposed identity is external and meaningless, even though you are no longer with me. I will carry you here. We are warriors, no matter what we may look like. I stand here before you, a product of war. Only this time, I'm not fighting on foreign lands. This time, I am standing on American soil, and I am fighting for your acceptance.
Great. Thank you, West. Let's go ahead and bring West up
Yeah.
to the podium, if you will. Should I not spotlight me, Eric, so we can get West? Oh, there we go. Brilliant. West, meet Anna Deavere Smith.
Hi, Miss Smith.
It's fabulous.
Thank you.
How did that feel, West, watching that in this forum?
For whatever reason, I couldn't stop smiling. I really, really enjoy, I don't know, I didn't actually watch myself because I wanted to save it for now. I didn't want to watch myself and the take when we first had like all those 5 or 4 takes. And I don't know, watching it, it felt really good. It felt really sort of empowering. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my alarm for next conservatory block. Yeah, that was great.
Good, good. And what would you want to do going forward in terms of expanding this into your one-person show?
I know that for my original piece, I had to cut down a lot of it. It ended up being like a 5-minute performance, and so I think I just expand on that. I want to try to maybe talk about my grandma from my Japanese side. She was originally she met my grandpa when he went from World War II to go rebuild Japan after the bombing, and so when she was like very little, she was trained to just turn any object into a weapon to use it against the white man. And so I also want to sort of expand upon that side of my family and talk about how she was like one of the very first Japanese women to ever live in Alabama. And at the time of less than like 2 years ago, everybody was told to like hate the Japanese and they were our enemy. And now they're suddenly living amongst them, and all the hate that
Discord
that was happening to her. And so I'd really like to touch upon that as well.
Well, thank you. I mean, who do you think you're talking to when you're who's your audience? Who are you talking to?
When I'm my grandpa, I'm talking to myself, or I'm talking to Mochi, the character. And then this sort of piece, I kind of want to have it as just, I'm using it as a way to, because like I said, whenever anybody asks me like about my family or with my family, it's like all I can say are those 2 or those 3 words, like I'm Japanese and Filipino, and that's it. And so this is really a way of me showing to everyone who I am.
Yeah. Now, what's the white part?
The like percent or
no? Are there white people in your background?
Yes, my my mom's side of the family is Polish and we're Czech, and we are just learned that we are 2% Greek, and we are also Bohemian. So I got a lot of white as well, and that would also be something, to just show that it's Asian hidden, and then also on the outside, my mom's side of the family, they all live in Wisconsin right now, and one memory that stands out was my first football game going with my recent grandpa, my grandpa Jack, and I remember we got like the cheese head, and I went with my cousins, and that was really, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think one way, Professor, for him to expand it is to put the white side in it too? I mean, dramatically, you could be shocking and start out as your grandfather or another Asian person, and people will actively think about what you say will think about. Like the audience will go, what is this white boy doing? When does he know it's like 2021? What's up with them? What's up with this cat, right?
That was one of
the shocking thing to do would be to start with a very strong Asian accent and then flip it, And then the only last thing I want to say is, which, I think this is a kind of a bigger project, Professor, which is, I would say the last part of it seemed, and I sort of alluded to this in my remarks, it's about how when you about expression, that people in your generation have really been affected by movie stars. And I would say that's the part that seemed like a movie star to me. That the language felt that you had seen it in either in the acting class or on television. And I would say that's where would you start to make that more original. And actually the person I thought about was Kamala Harris, is to see how she talks, as she has many times now, her mixed background. It just, that's where I thought you might get a job uh, with that type of acting, but I think you're more original than that, especially given that you've grown up hearing all kinds of rhythms of language. You're lucky. A lot of people's families all sound the same. Yours doesn't.
Great, 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 great. Thank you, West. Okay, let's move to Araya.
Hi, my name is Araya Nicole, and the name of my piece is Silent Voices in the Dark. There are people out there that are struggling to find their voices, and those people often feel like they're left in the dark. They feel like they're being left behind. I use silent voices in the dark to recognize those people and let them know that they are being heard. I was mute as a child until 10, and before I started talking, I just always read books. I loved writing, I loved reading books. That was kind of my escape from this scary world that we're living in today. Whenever my mom asked me, Araya, are you okay? I would just nod and smile. And that was like a really rough period for me. And my mom tried to get me out of the house, and she found theater. And it was something about being able to be a whole nother character, or being able to be this new person that just made me happy. I actually spoke, and I was like, I got this, Mom. I got this. Anna Deavere Smith, like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. She's so cool. I appreciate her confidence and how she uses her voice. She has such an incredible, strong voice that, like, this means a lot to me and to the silent voices out there, because it's like, I want to be you. Like, you use your voice and you use your platform for so much good, and that's honestly the biggest thing for me. I hope that they walk away with comfort and this sense of pride, even. I hope that silent voices can almost be that hand that pulls them up and brings them closer to the light. I often have trouble sleeping because I hear silent voices in the night. Mama says I'm crazy, so God's the one who tucks me in and says goodnight. I want to close my eyes, but there are silent voices in the night reminding me of what happened earlier today. I was walking down the street on 5th when I saw a woman walk up to this little girl and say, "You need to go back to where you came from." And to be honest, I wanted to smack her right up the head, but the little girl simply smiled at her and said, "Ma'am, you must got maggots up your head, 'cause my great-grandmama built this land and she is dead." I remember the gaze in the woman's eyes when she realized she did something wrong. My mind still can't process how that little girl was so strong. She never cried, she didn't stutter, but I sure wondered where the hell was her mother. Ever since then, I began to think, how could a body so small have a voice bigger than me? I mean, is it something in my teeth that I can't see? I can't be? Sometimes it makes me want to scream because I can't be who I want to be, who I try to be, who they want me to be. Voices, I need you to answer me at the end of the day. Who am I really? Am I the woman on the street? Or the little girl? Or is that a choice that's left to me? Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever find that inner peace, but for now I'll just sit still. I often have trouble sleeping because I hear silent voices in the night. Mama says I'm crazy, and God watches in fright.
Thank you, Araya.
Terrific.
Come on up, Araya.
Hi, my name is Ella
Oh,
Park, and my
We'll pause, please.
Predestined is the last word that my
Hold
character
just for a
says.
moment,
And I
guys.
just thought it connected back.
Thank you. Let's bring Araya to the podium. Hi, Araya. Meet
Hi.
Anna Deavere Smith.
Hi,
It's great to meet you.
it's nice to meet you.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you feel?
Honestly, that was so weird watching myself. I still struggle watching myself, but it was cool.
Yeah, go. What do you mean cool? So hard, but cool, but what does that mean?
Cool as in like, I'm content with what I saw, and
You feel proud of yourself for sharing that?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have the same, everybody who's coming, I'm going to ask everybody the same question first, which is, who are you talking to?
Honestly, at first, I'm talking to the voices in a way, but at the same time, I believe that I am talking to everyone. My kind of purpose with this was to share my story and just speak to everyone who's out there listening. So,
And what do the voices sound like?
hushed whispers, very rapid hushed whispers.
What are they whispering?
Things like, "You don't belong here." Things like, you have no place, you have no purpose, things like that.
Yeah.
She had a recent, she talks about a recent experience. I don't know if you want to share this, Araya, that you shared in our interview.
Oh, with my mom. Yeah, so I don't live in a friendly neighborhood. Well, kind of friendly, but we were we were on a dinner date, kind of basically, and these group of people who were not nice towards Black people walked in, and they looked at us and they were like, you guys need to get out of here, like you don't belong here, like get out of here. And they were like, change the station, we want to hear what's going on with the polls and blah 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 blah. And it was just crazy. It was like they were so upfront and in our faces about it, and it was honestly pretty terrifying. And there came this moment for me and my mom where it was like we didn't want to act on that angry Black woman stereotype. We didn't want to face these people because we just didn't want to cause conflict, so we just ended up leaving. And honestly, after that, I felt very defeated. I know my mom definitely felt very defeated after that, but it's crazy how we're in 2020 and we're still experiencing stuff like this today, to this day. And yeah.
I mean, I think, and you know, what I said to Professor Dorian is I don't teach people who are not my students because, you know, there's a long process of getting to everybody's speaking a foreign language. You know, if you heard what I said earlier, that makes sense. Everybody's speaking a foreign language, and I have to learn that. And the way I learn it is first asking them to do things that are not about themselves and are pre-existing scripts that I know well. And it's through that frame that I start to talk to them and know something about them. And I encourage them to, I get them involved in knowing about each other. And it's sort of, you know, so I'm at midterms now at NYU, and my students are just showing me their one person work, and it's like a foreign language. So to meet you and, you know, something that's just intimate about you, because I'm not your teacher, would seem to me to be a very dangerous thing to do. It would be like, you know, being a resident, you know, what can I say, like a substitute chiropractor, right? I just come in and start cracking your back and I've never seen you before. So, I mean, what I do have to say, you therefore have to really take with a grain of salt, which is that you know, teaching is not, it's a relationship, and I don't have a relationship with any of you. So, and I'm not a critic at all, or temperamentally, I see myself as an audience. So when you tell the story about what happened in the, you know, not while you're trying to sleep and not silent voices, there's nothing silent about those voices that came into the restaurant. That's very real. And I would almost say, like, if this was a long-term rehearsal, that rather than going back to the silent voices script, you should make a script about the loud voice, and then go back to the silent voice to see if there's something that changes about the silent voice. And the thought I had in the very, very beginning was, what would it be like if you did speak to those voices? I understand, you know, that we, you know, you're speaking right to camera for our purpose, but what would happen if you spoke to the voices, and if you were involved in that, and that we would get a chance to sit outside of it? I think it would liberate us to come in more, actually. What do you think?
1 minute.
I agree with that, actually. I think that it would be cool to, instead of me talking about the voices, it would be cool for me to almost have a confrontation to those voices.
Or even use media so that we can hear the voices, and those real voices. You know, you sort of portrayed these people who came into the restaurant. I mean, it could be very haunting, and then we get to be haunted with you. You know, the whole thing that the goal is to try to help us feel, right? It's not, you know, ultimately, and this might be for everybody too, right? It's not about, audiences are very selfish. They come to the theater to laugh, to cry, to be distracted, to change, to heal. And so you almost have to put them in the position of what happened to you, if you can. And so in that way, I think animating those voices so that we get to experience what you experienced is our empathic road to your crisis. What do you think, Professor Dorian?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's you got to explore all angles of it. I remember, Anna, when you and I were working on my piece, and my piece was one interview with one person, you really encouraged me to open up and interview everybody surrounding the whole story over the course of the 5 years since the event had happened. And whether or not you use it, it doesn't matter, but it gives you a comprehensive comprehensive look at the story. And I think that's really important.
When you say, who am I really, do you really mean that you don't know who you are?
Yes, like I feel like I don't have a place. I feel like the voices are trying to tell me that I have a place, but I don't identify with what they're telling me.
Is it that you don't have a place, or is it that you don't, what the voices say is discredited? And is it really that you don't know who you are? Is it that you know who you are, and they're speaking to you as a sham? It's kind of like you and your mother, it seems to me, in that restaurant scene. You know very well who you are, and you have dignity, and you made the choice to avoid further violence by leaving. Which, on the one hand, you were disappointed with yourselves, but you made the best choice. Why be assaulted? You can find your food somewhere else, and if you'd stayed, you'd have indigestion.
Yeah, exploring all those scenarios. What would it have looked like if you did confront her?
Yeah, you should read June Jordan's poem about my rights. That would be a great exercise for her to learn that poem.
I didn't hear it, Anna.
It's June Jordan's poem about my rights.
Great.
Excellent exercise for her to learn that poem. Very, 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 I think it would be important.
Great.
To speak that, learn it and speak it.
Thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Araya. Okay, we'll move on to Ella Park.
Hi, my name is Ella Park, and my piece is Predestined. Predestined is the last word that my character says. I just thought it connected back to her. She talks about her inability to feel connections towards groups that she thinks she should be connected to and groups that she thinks she shouldn't be connected to. I think it kind of has a ring to it, and it's such a loaded word. My favorite way to talk about things is with dramedies. I think people laugh when they're in pain, and it's just, I'd say it's a pretty healthy healing process, or it's one of the, at least they're laughing, I guess. This character, or Janice, I kind of wrote her as someone who I wouldn't necessarily want to be, but who says and does the things that I would want to do, because she's very out there and kind of aggressive and in your face. But I do think it's cool when people are like that, just because I tend to be a lot less upfront about things. With Anna Deavere Smith, I really like how each of her characters has such a distinct voice, and you can tell that they're such different people from each other, and she transitions into these different people so easily. All the characters I write, there's a little bit of me in them, and I just really admire her ability to convey these drastically different voices. The number one thing I'm hoping for is that they'll just be entertained, but beyond that, I'm hoping that people will be able to feel at least somewhat represented or seen, just more understanding of another perspective. I've been praying a lot lately. Actually, just last week I prayed that God would maybe drop a brick on top of Sarah Chang's head, and that Matt would break up with her. Because she's always so smooth about it, about being a couple. None of that happened, by the way. Well, I guess he does work in mysterious ways. Anyways, I guess that's kind of the thing. I think God never answers any of my prayers, and it's kind of getting old. I mean, I get why he wouldn't answer those, but I also pray for good things too, They never happen either. And I was just thinking, I'm a pretty okay Christian, but I've never felt that connection to God, the one everyone talks about. And it's not like you can force a connection, right? Like take the gays, for example. I mean, I'm not part of the whole LGTB alphabet gang or anything. That would be kind of ridiculous. But what if I was, what if I was lesbo? I mean, I think that's a question every girl's got to ask herself. What if I liked girls? If I only ever felt connections to girls, you got me? And yeah, technically you could choose not to act like one of those, but I just think it's so mean that God would make you do that. Because isn't love supposed to be the best thing you can get on earth? And to abandon that for something you're not even sure is up there. Yeah, I know you'd fight me on that, Grover. You'd say if I really believed, I know for sure where I'm going, right to heaven, right? Well, maybe I'm gonna go to hell. Maybe I'm predestined.
Great job, Ella.
Great job. Terrific.
Great writing, right, Anna?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how y'all worked on this.
Yeah, so she's Ella. Let's bring Ella and Anna back. Isabella, if you're looking for her, she's probably under Isabella Park.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
there you are. Hi, Ella.
Hi. Hi, Miss Smith.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Talk about your process with this.
Yeah, I think this character is just inspired by some people I met, and then I just thought of the first line, and then I kind of just banged it all out in like 30 minutes, and then I went back and I just revised it a couple times over.
And what about the acting part of it? How'd you work on the acting part of it?
For the acting,
So by the way, yeah, we didn't do any real acting coaching before we saw these.
On their own, I thought y'all had really worked on this stuff.
No, we did some tweaking after we selected the 5, Anna. We did a very minimal work with each, but no, these are all, this is them.
So show me your stuff. What would you say to Ella if this was her, her first draft in acting class? What would you say? Show me your stuff.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, well, I would say, I would say, who is this character? And let's delve a little deeper and go a little further.
Okay. All right. So who is this character, Ella? Let's dig a little deeper.
she's this girl. She's at a Bible camp. She's talking to her youth pastor. And I think she's just like, I feel like she's just a very average teenager. She's definitely like very angsty and rebellious and a little uncouth. But I think she's just struggling a lot inside because she's at a Christian camp and she thinks she's lesbian. And she's just trying to hash it all out, I guess.
It strikes me that all the pieces we've seen before, everybody does have a kind of a problem of fitting in to predestined boxes. So far, everybody's got that problem. So, when you have you seen your the other pieces in addition to yours, or is this the first time everybody's seeing the works?
Oh, this is the first time.
1 minute.
Wow, that everybody's seen each other's work. Wow, that's powerful, because you all have something in common, which is that you have a problem fitting in, or the person who's not you. What's her name? The character you created?
Janice.
So Janice has the problem of not fitting into this predestined box. I mean, when you think about going to hell, unless she doesn't care about hell at all, I mean, there's some crisis here, right? And that's what all drama is about, is crisis. I guess writing is too. Writing for the theater is about identifying the crisis and that or what we call conflict. And that's what gives it the energy that can stand on stage. So think about her, and what is her crisis? In any kind of trouble?
Yeah, I think she's really scared of going to hell, even though she's not sure she believes in it.
And what in the Christian doctrine specifically has she heard at camp that would make her think she could be going to hell?
I guess she's just heard to that you won't go to hell if you believe, but she doesn't know she can force her belief just because there's other things that that don't really add up to her. And she just wants to feel what everyone else is feeling. I guess.
So what doesn't add up?
I think what the Bible says about some topics, I guess, like homosexuality, like she just doesn't understand that, and she can't believe in something that she doesn't trust, I guess.
So she doesn't trust the Bible?
Yeah.
And what about this, the camp, is it the youth counselor? Is there anything at stake in talking to the youth counselor, sort of dropping the possibility that you're gay to the counselor? Is there anything that could happen because of that?
I guess not. I haven't really thought about the stakes too much, but
Yeah, I think, and maybe you can help me with this, because I think this, and for everybody, like the stakes are very important. There have to be stakes.
mhm.
Yeah, I think that's the launch. I think that's the launch.
Yeah, there's got to be stakes. Say more, because I don't know what y'all are.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say too, like, you know, this project we essentially did inside of a month, you know, a month,
Yeah.
about 3 weeks. So this is just total starting points. We haven't, you know, they're blank slates essentially. So they're just starting with what is my angle on identity? What is my voice here? And so we're right at the starting point. So I think that's a great thing to start to think of from here is who's Grover? Why are you telling him this? And what are the stakes?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some violence in it,
Mm-hmm.
which is this idea of dropping a brick on Sarah Jane's head. Is that a joke? Is that a real wish?
I think it's somewhere in between there. Yeah. I think she wants it to happen, but if it actually happened, she might feel bad.
I would say that's the main thing. Is like, you know, next step, next rehearsal. What do I have to lose? What does she have to lose? How could this be bad?
Yeah.
How could it be good?
Yeah.
What are the stakes?
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
We'll probably have to make up a few minutes here. So let's move to Elora.
My name is Alora Sparnicht, and the name of my piece is Quasimodo. Quasimodo, his story is very, I mean, obviously a lot more extreme, but paralleled with kind of the message I wanted to send about hiding because you're afraid of rejection. When I saw Anna Deavere Smith in the TED Talk she did, take her shoes off, and she was barefoot, and that's kind of where it clicked. I'm like, you know what? I would never take my shoes off in a public place, because my feet do not look like most people's feet. So that's kind of when it clicked, and I realized that I needed to write about this. Our mentality as sort of a family has been, if there's ever an issue that surrounds it, we'll address it, and we're here for you, and we'll get to the bottom of it. But you know, there's really no excuses, and we're not gonna coddle you or hold you back. They were glad that I finally kind of dealt with it, whether it's physical or emotional, or you know, something from your past or your hands and feet. There's always something that about you that you want to keep from people and that you think is ugly. But I think part of coming to terms with who you are and being okay with who you are is being okay with your entire self, and when other people accept the entirety of who you are. So I think that's kind of what I want the takeaway to be, is just not being afraid of the parts of you that you think are ugly or should be hidden. My greatest fear? Jeez. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to start from the beginning then. You see, my thumbs are abnormally large and wide. A thumb and a half, as I like to say. They were fused in one of my surgeries when I was 2. So they don't bend now. But hey, at least they'll grow straighter. I have no pincer grasp, and I'm no expert or anything, but I'm pretty sure that and speech are the main things that separate humans from animals. My left index finger is completely missing a knuckle, and because it's always sticking straight out, it's gotten into its fair share of bumps and bruises over the years. And you know, I call it my magic finger, but if we're being completely honest here, it looks more like a crooked branch that was hastily trimmed from the tree because it was so freaking ugly. My feet? Oh, they're even worse. My big toes have the same extra wide quality as my thumbs, except they also stick out at an odd angle and like scrape across the ground whenever I wear flip-flops. Really not a cute look. And then there's this sizable gap between my big toe and my little toes, which are all webbed together like I'm some strange duckfish frog. So, as you can imagine, I'm quite a big fan of socks and closed-toed shoes. But I'm used to them. I mean, I don't love talking about them or looking at them or thinking about them. But I'm used to them. I mean, it's still frustrating. Never getting to buy the twinkle toes or Vans you want because they don't come in extra wide, or I don't know, having to wear dorky Crocs to the pool because flip-flops are an option. And it's hard, you know, when people comment on your puffy scars during Thumb Wars, which I've never won, by the way. And I try to shake it off as best I can, but there is still some days when I just can't help feeling like Quasimodo. So I guess my greatest fear is that one day someone will reach out to hold my hand and then just let it go.
Thank you, Elora. Come on up. Hi, Elora.
Hello.
How are you? This is Anna Deavere Smith.
It's wonderful to meet you.
How do you feel watching that?
I feel good. I feel good. That was intense. But yeah, I feel relieved that I did that. So yeah.
Relieved? How so, hon?
I guess it's not something I really talk about. So I think that now that 349 people know about it, it's cool. It's cool to put that out there.
Yeah. What are you putting out there?
Well, the fact that my hands and feet don't look like most people's, but also that fear of rejection, and yeah, I think it's just being vulnerable.
Yeah,
it's so powerful. It's so powerful, and it if this were a show, I think is the way you've structured this, Elora should come next to the last, or what we crassly call in theater the 11 o'clock number, because you are resolving part of the crisis that everyone else so far has talked about, which is, to use Ella's words, the predestined matter that I don't fit in. And I suspect something about how you were so far parented and surrounded, you've resolved that. Which is also what helps it be dramatic. I always tell my students, my graduate students, don't bring me things that, I'm not a shrink, so don't bring me what you have not resolved. And because you have to be ready, because the audience is selfish. However, your particular honesty and vulnerability, and because you have resolved this like a drama in your life, the audience can't help but give over to you. So there's a form of leadership in what you are doing. And it's what I think all performers are, no matter how beautiful or perfect some look, the performers who are able to, I call it like throw a dart into the audience's heart, are wounded healers. And that's what you are. Whether you become a performer, who's that dog behind you there?
That's my dog, Bailey. He likes to keep me company. Don't
Yeah,
mind him.
Bailey's done a great job. Whether you become a vet, whether you become a street sweeper, whether you go clean Professor Dorian's house, wherever you go, you're going to be a wounded healer. And I want to just say thank you to the beauty of what I just saw.
Thank
I'm
you.
never going to forget it. Never going to forget it.
None of us will ever. Thank you very much, Laura. You know, she's in the creative writing conservatory, and we're going to adopt her over in the acting conservatory as well.
Okay, good.
Okay, last but not least, Molly Ray. Oops, sorry. Hold for a second. I need to get off that spotlight. Thank you.
My name is Molly Ray, and my piece is called Threaded Together. Threaded Together, I felt like it was the perfect thing to land on for a dual meaning, because as a person who's adopted into a family, you're kind of thread into a family and a connection. My mom was also adopted by my grandma, and we're all threaded together through like love and everything, and threading together all the questions that have also come with, you know, just like, how is my body, and like, why does it function in a certain way? Like, why did I have scoliosis? Was it genetic? Just the genetic component. I am 4'11". You can't tell I'm sitting down, but I am very short. This is like once in a lifetime. I have been pumped and like planning since the contest was announced. I really sunk into kind of her storytelling style. She brought together these like cross sections of related issues that affect one very unified community in such like an illuminating way, and just connected all the dots. And I feel like she's done that in a lot of her work and continues to do that in a lot of her work. I hope that they walk away with the realization that, you know, there's a bunch of different ways to define both yourself, identity, and family. And I think that we need to divorce ourselves from the thought that your only obligation to the people you love is because you share a blood with them. Mom, are you camera ready? No. Just kidding. It's okay, Mom.
My very favorite memory would be the first time I ever laid eyes on her. When I finally was led in the room where she was laying there, she looked at me and I looked at her, and it was just like, that was it. It was absolutely destined for us to be together. All I ever wanted in my whole life was to be a mom. There's all these babies that need homes, and I called my mom and I was like, am I crazy? You know, and she was like, absolutely not. No, just go for it. It's not blood that pulls us together. It's just divine intervention or something. I don't know.
When strangers look at us, Bubba, they see two things instantly. The first is obvious. We don't look alike. There's never been a moment in our life when I've tried to tell you otherwise. What would be the point? You can see it just like everyone sees your brown eyes and my blue ones, and your brown hair next to my blonde. And there's no dad in the mix for you to resemble. I'm all you've ever known and ever had, and that's normal for us. It's simple, it makes total sense. But it doesn't make sense to everyone as simply as it makes sense to us. You and I both grew up knowing that you don't need to share blood to be a family, but not a lot of people think that way, or they don't realize that it's a way to think. They look at each other and see themselves in the shape of a chin or the peak of a hairline. And even though we might not have that, I can still see myself in you, in the way that I raised you, how you act with kindness no matter what, how you never stop asking questions and seeking answers, how you know that if you want a goal with all your heart and you never stop trying and you never give up, you can achieve it. I know you know this because that's how I raised you, and because being your mother was my goal. So when people ask you, who's your real mom? The answers in our car rides when you felt the lyrics to Helen Reddy's I Am Woman and always say, Mama, it's the song you listen to when you are on the plane to get me from Vietnam. It's in the bows that I stuck in your hair the moment I saw you. But the answer is also in the second thing people see instantly when they look at us together. They see how when I look at you, you are everything that I have ever wanted. They see that you are what my whole life has been for.
Congratulations, Molly. Come on up.
Hi.
So Molly, there she is. So Anna, Molly's really, really shy. So we may have to pull some stuff out of her.
Such an honor to meet you.
She's not shy, right? You're kidding. She's not shy, right, at all. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. She's already read the complete of me and everybody who influenced me, I think she said earlier.
Yeah,
I'm trying. I'm making my way through it. Here we go.
Yeah, before the screening, she was like, I'm almost done with Fires in the Mirror and it's so intense. It's so amazing. What would you want to say to, we'll talk about your piece in a second. I know we're going to close here in a second, but what would you want to say to Anna or ask her about your piece?
About my piece? I just taking Fires in the Mirror. Now I just got to the part where like they talk about identity, and one of the ministers says how like identity is given to you and it was taken away from the Black community, and I just found that so impactful. And then you've spliced it in between the what the Jewish identity is, and it just made me think about like, what identity do I want to explore within my piece, because I feel like, and how would I negotiate which part I want to accentuate? Because I feel like another thing that you're incredible at is just like editing and selecting which what perspectives you want to amplify and which you like, you give certain stage time to. And I just don't know if I want to talk more about like the strong motherhood that I just like know, and that's, I feel like I'm the epitome of like the nature versus nurture argument. I'm like a living example of it. And I don't know if I want to talk about my mom being just the strength of like all of the mothers in my life, my grandma, my mom, and how I would like intercut that with also talking about figuring out who I am. And like West was saying about perceived identity and looking at yourself and saying, I don't know what the outside of me looks like, but it says something to everyone else, and kind of exploring that. And I think that there's the identity that I know to be true, but then there's also the identity that other people have given to me and that doctors have given to me, for instance. And I don't know how I want to cut those together within the play, is what I'm kind of asking. I just in a very convoluted way.
Well, I mean, first of all, let me just say that, you know, as you know, this is as we're starting to conclude that, you know, just everything that I've seen, Araya, am I saying Araya's name correctly? Araya,
Yes.
and Alora, and West and Ella, you know, again, this whole this piece is about the journey of trying to defy the predestined possibility, again, to use Isabella's word, predestined possibility that we don't fit anywhere. And in your case, it's kind of explicit what is implied in Alora's piece. There's an implied love in Alora's piece. And when we go back to the beginning of it, when she talks about her parents were like, we're here for you if you need us, but there's no excuses. We expect you to be strong. And then it's explicit with you, right? Because you are the loving mother giving encouragement. And so, I mean, to me, I'm so very honored to be able to witness this work when it is still wet on the page, and all of you are so vulnerable. Just retain that vulnerability as you go forward. But I think, Molly Ray, what is very provocative about what you've written, or what you said actually in the beginning, before you performed, which is that you're asking us to reconsider this idea of family. And families are the beginning. They're wonderful, but they can also be, the beginning of this type of safe houses of identity thing I was talking about, that we need ambassadors to help us understand that we need to do more than care about our bloodline. I mean, it's really urgent right now. And I think that it was Alora who said she thought what made us different, the humans different than animals, is possibly speech, and then it was something else. What was it, Alora? But maybe speech and something else. What I thought about was apparently, I think it was Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, who was asking her students one day what they thought was different between animals and humans. And the answer was that if an animal breaks his leg, say a tiger or a giraffe breaks his leg, the other animals are going to leave him or her. But humans, so if we're human, we help each other walk with a broken leg. And we say, well, here's a splint. This is how you do it. And so I think there's something very powerful in what you say you want us to think about, which is there's more than bloodlines that thread us together. And we are in a worldwide crisis right now where we don't understand that. We just don't. And today, meeting all of this beautiful work, even as it is positioned as a struggle of, in a way, I'm not sure I fit. What are these awful voices? West, promising us that, what is on the outside isn't what's on the inside. I just think that all of you have done a real service for us. It's for you say, Professor Dorian, this was all just put together, but it's very, very powerful. And I think, Molly Ray, for you, you have all that you need to really ask American society to reconsider the bounds of family. Because as long as we continue to prioritize staying behind that picket fence, people are going to suffer. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank your mother too.
Oh my gosh, I want to thank my mother for everything. She's wonderful. She's in the other room. She came.
Oh, I was gonna say, bring her out. We got a few seconds if she wants to come out. Yeah, what a mom.
They're out in the living.
All of the families.
The stampede of the Karst family is arriving.
There's mom.
I don't like being on camera like Molly does, but what an honor to meet you, and thank you for working with all of them.
Yes.
Well, Anna, this was really powerful, and we can't thank you enough for
Thank
taking.
you, as usual, at the at the Orange County School for the Arts. Everything was so well organized.
Well,
and we could really perceive, and everyone has been so well taken care of, that we get to see the best of the talent and the intelligence and the passion that you have. And I want to thank you for that, because it gives me faith in education and in the arts to see the gold standard of it.